Now, moving into our other story for the day, Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema over the weekend has decided she no longer wants to be associated with Democrats, so she is going to be switching parties. And no, she is not going to be a Republican. Instead, she's going to be an independent. Now, during an interview with CNN, Sinema said, quote, "I've registered as an Arizona independent. I know some people might be a little bit surprised by this, but actually, I think it makes a lot of sense. I never fit nearly into any party box. I've never really tried. I don't want to. Removing myself from the partisan structure, not only is it true to who I am and how I operate, I also think it'll provide a place of belonging for many folks across the state and the country who are also tired of the partisanship." Now, Sinema's switch to the Democratic Party in the short term won't really have an impact because they will still be keeping their majority. Bernie Sanders and Angus King are also considered independents, but they caucus with the Democrats and also vote with Democrats almost 100% of the time. So Democrats will keep their majority in the Senate. Her switching to be an independent is not going to make a difference here. Now, we can only assume that the same will happen with Sinema, so just because she's now becoming an independent doesn't necessarily mean that she's no longer going to be voting for bills that Democrats are trying to push through. So pretty much that any bill that Joe Biden wants to pass through, any bill that Nancy Pelosi wants to pass through, or Chuck Schumer or any other Democrat, we can assume that probably at least 95% of the time Sinema is going to be on board with them on that. Now, in an op-ed article in the Arizona Republic, Sinema explained her decision by writing, quote, "When politicians are more focused on denying the opposition party a victory than they are on improving American lives, the people who lose are everyday Americans. That's why I have joined the growing number of Arizonans who reject party politics by declaring my independence from the broken partisan system in Washington." Meanwhile, Biden's press secretary released a statement sort of shrugging off her party switch, writing, "Senator Sinema has been a key partner on some of the historic legislation President Biden has championed over the last 20 months, from the American Rescue Plan to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, from the Inflation Reduction Act to the CHIPS and Science Act, from the PACT Act to the Gun Safety Act, to the Respect for Marriage Act, and more. We understand that her decision to register as an independent in Arizona does not change the new Democratic majority control of the Senate, and we have every reason to expect that we will continue to work successfully with her." So that's Jean-Pierre's statement on her change. Now, in the long term, what this could possibly do is open up the window for a Republican to win the Senate when Sinema is up for re-election in 2024. That's if, of course, if she does decide to run. This is because if Democrats decide to run another candidate, the final vote will be whoever that candidate is versus the Republican candidate versus Kyrsten Sinema. So it's going to be a three-way vote here. And seemingly, Sinema and whoever the Democratic candidate is would probably split votes. The Democratic candidate might get more votes than Sinema. Sinema might get more votes than the Democratic candidate. We don't really know. But in doing so, by those two splitting votes, by Sinema and the other Democrats splitting votes, the Republican candidate could get the advantage because of this. So, for example, back in the 2018 election, Sinema beat her opponent, Martha McSally, by almost 56,000 votes. However, if Sinema ends up splitting the votes she got in 2018, or maybe just, getting either 40% of the votes that she got in 2018, or maybe 60 to 70% of the votes that she got in 2018, she splits that vote with the Democratic candidate, whoever that happens to be in 2024, if they decide to run one, the Republican candidate will end up receiving more votes and winning the seat. So for Democrats in this case, it might be better to not run their own candidate out there if Sinema does decide to run, even though they're not that happy that she's decided to make the switch.
Now, independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema is taking heat for leaving the Democrat Party, but those attacks are nothing new. Remember when activists followed her into the bathroom to yell at her?
We need solutions. The Build Back Better plan has the solutions that we need.
We knocked on doors for you to get you elected, and just how we got you elected, we can get you out of office if you don't support what you promised us.
I'm a survivor of human trafficking, and it's because of the lack of worker protections that we don't have in the gig economy.
And liberals went off when they heard Sinema ditch the Democrats. AOC tweeting, "People deserve more." A GQ writer with "She would be so much happier running a burlesque-themed knitting store." And former MSNBC host Keith Olbermann writing, "You are ethically unfit to continue serving as a United States Senator." I always love women supporting women, and Keith Olbermann is always just detested in my book. But I want to go to you on this one, Jason, because because you know Kyrsten Sinema, you served with her. Now, this was interesting to me that she chose to change to an independent, but a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle are saying she did this to escape what would be a difficult Democrat primary challenger, and she kind of did this as a cop-out. Do you think this was a politically sound strategy for a senator coming from a purple state like Arizona? Is this going to work out for her?
Well, look, I did serve with her in the House of Representatives. Personally, I get along with her wonderfully. I think she truly is independent-minded, and I think that does play well, actually, in Arizona. But I think more than ever, this seat now will go to Republicans in 2 years because Democrats can't resist it. They lurch so far to the left. They're almost unrecognizable to the general public. They field a candidate as a Democrat. She runs as an independent. And guess what? That splits the vote, and a Republican can then go in and win that majority. I don't think she can be reelected as an independent with a Democrat on the ballot in Arizona. I don't think that would happen.
And Harris, you spent some time with her as well in a much different political time in 2016, speaking to her and talking to her about what she plans to do. Did you get the sense from her that she was a solid Democrat, or was she more independent? You know, liberals right now are saying she's a Republican, she acts like a Republican. They've completely written her off.
They don't like her because they couldn't control her.
Right.
And they don't have a lot of love for Manchin, either of West Virginia, who's also independent-minded at times. He didn't get what he wanted from the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, so it's getting ugly. But I don't think you're going to see him pull this dance move. This is specific to her. And yes, back in late 2015, early 2016, 538 group looked at her and said she voted in line with what would be Trump policies north of 50%, close to 60% of the time. So this is something that she's been doing all along, being independent on certain issues. It works in Arizona for this reason. Arizona has a lot of Californians that have moved in now. All those U-Haul trucks that California can't get back. And because of that, And because of that, she is going to have to be different. She didn't do enough at the border. She did some. So, but she did more than, I mean, Mark Kelly, the Democrat who ran for Senate, had to be dragged down there. I mean, the polls had to show that it was time. So she does have the ability to run that way. I agree with Jason. I think the seat goes to a Republican if it's up against her. I don't think the Democrats are going to pour money behind her.
I don't think so either, but I think that this is a strong move to say, I'm not ride or die Democrat. Gino, I know that you are a View watcher. I know that you watch it. I know that you watch it weekdays.
Every day.
So you're familiar with this clip. But just in case those of you out there don't watch The View, let's take a listen, and I want to get View watcher Giano's take on the other side.
This party has nothing. They have nothing, no platform, nothing. All they do is hang out with Nazis and white supremacists. The other party actually is doing something for people like us, the working families, for gay people, for voting rights. And then she's like, what should I do?
What's bizarre is that, Democrats voted for a Democrat. And they didn't vote for an independent. So for her to now say, this is always who I've been, well, she should have said that from the beginning.
I don't think just changing her title or her party is going to make a voter say, oh,
they're
great,
still going to not like
now
her.
One of.
So, Giano, on The View, I'm not a watcher, but I do see clips here and there.
You've been on it. You've been on it.
I have been on The View. I love the ladies. Joy and I are besties. I'm seeing her later. Just kidding.
I'm hallucinating right now.
Women supporting women, but now they're saying, Kyrsten Sinema, it's okay if we follow you into the bathroom. It's okay if we intimidate you. Keith Olbermann saying that you are politically unfit, morally unfit. They turn on her on a dime. Is this the Democrat Party that rides or dies with each other?
Well, this is a progressive activist, and hats off to them because they'll run off an elected official that they actually need in their party. They'll run off Democratic voters. And if Republicans were serious about winning, they should hire progressive activists that are going to go harass Democrats because they're not woke enough. This is where we've come to in America, and it's such a shame that folks cannot give their viewpoint, have some independence from their party. I'm a conservative. But if conservatives do something that I don't like or moves away from that particular ideology, I may not support them or I'll call them out. That's where we should be as a country. But they want somebody that's going to be married to the Democratic Party and do whatever Joe Biden says. And that's the wrong move. I appreciate her leaving, and I think Joe Manchin should leave as well.